Since our founding, we have actually had about 73,000 days, or nearly 1.8 million hours, to get a few things right in our town. So how do you think we've done as a city? You know, Columbus was once described as a place where, and I quote, "People are friendly, schools are open, snow is cleared, potholes are patched, garbage is picked up, the city lives. There is no danger that City Hall furniture will have to be sold at a sheriff's auction just to meet payroll. In Columbus, we have a budget surplus." Well, that description was taken from a 1979 cover story from Ohio Magazine comparing us to our city up 71, Cleveland. You know, I read this article when I was just 12 years old, and it fascinated me. And I quote from it again. "Let me have Columbus. It is a bustling, growing city with the pride, sensibilities, and self-sufficiency of a rural hamlet. A city that doesn't have a single problem serious enough to be heard above the wind in the corn." Now, growing up as a kid in Youngstown, I was about ready to believe that, right? Well, 10 years later, I'm an OSU student living in Columbus, and this Newsweek cover story comes out. And it's a similar story, calling us the boom town in the middle of the Rust Belt. Now, that cover story was 23 years ago. And so just a little more than a year ago, when our bicentennial year began, many of us may have wondered, how was 2012 going to turn out? Would it be a year of progress or missed opportunity? So now we're going to take a quick look back at the past 13 months and see how we've done. Just Friday, the Census Bureau released estimates, and we found out that since the 2010 census, we've been growing by 404 additional people every single week, or about 1,750 additional folks every month. And since our last census, we've grown by 42,037 people. But what makes that most significant is Ohio's other 79 counties lost 34,000 people during that same period of time. If this rate of change continues, by the time the census is done in 2020, Columbus will pass both Cleveland and Cincinnati to become Ohio's largest metro. Some of our growth is really about jobs. According to Ohio labor statistics, in the past 12 months, we've netted 15,600 additional jobs. That's the largest single-year increase in employment since 2001. The good news about jobs really heated up in December when the announcement was made for big data coming to Columbus with 500 high-paying jobs. In fact, a national on-numbers economic index that takes 18 data points said that Columbus now has the fourth strongest regional economy in the country, only to be outpaced by Austin, Texas, Oklahoma City, and Houston. National media continue to recognize our strengths, with the New York Times Magazine this past fall saying that the state's economic future will largely be tied to the economy that Columbus represents. And just this month, Delta's Sky magazine called Columbus the new Midwest, saying that we have become the city that others now want to be. We also know that the fall election was really about Columbus. Regardless of which candidate you voted for, it continues to really matter what we think here in Central Ohio. Housing made a big recovery. In fact, the average selling price of a home in our region jumped 11% in 12 months. That's an increase in value of $37 every single day, or $13,000 in a year. The number of homes that sold in our region jumped 16% to 23,000 sales. That was a 5-year high. And while still short of our boom years, new home construction began its long climb back, with building permits jumping 21%, also a 5-year high. Downtown continued its renaissance with a new concert venue at Columbus Commons, the opening of a convention-class hotel, new buildings broke ground for Columbia Gas, and Nationwide added an additional 1,000 jobs to downtown. People continue to move to our center city, with 2,500 residential units either under construction or announcing, such as this one near the Arena District, or in the Brewery District, in the River South area, and also at Columbus Commons. Recently, 1,300 new housing units were announced at the former Jeffrey manufacturing site in Italian Village, one of the largest brownfield sites left in our city. And with thousands of new people moving to our center city, the first new grocery store in generations opened just this past weekend with the new Hills Market. Healthcare in this community soared to new heights with the Wexner Medical Center at Ohio State, but also with Riverside Methodist, and also with Nationwide Children's. We had $2 billion in healthcare projects in this community, advancing us as a leader in medical services. And while a lot of things got bigger in 2012, some things got smaller, such as the Columbus Dispatch, which actually shifted from its standard size to more of a compact size. The arts kicked off our bicentennial, as we just learned, with Ballet Met, Columbus Jazz Orchestra, and WOSU celebrating the city's past, present, and future. Public art really hit the streets with bicentennial towers on the Broad Street Bridge, urban plein air paintings in alleys, and even a generative sentence written by the people of Columbus that evolves every 2 weeks. A time and temperature clock for Tehran, raising our daily awareness about what life might be like in the Middle East. The Financial Review and Advisory Committee, or also known as FRAC, completed its important work, and the Mayor and City Council began to implement its recommendations. Capital campaigns returned to our community with several cultural institutions, including CMA, which announced its $38 million, 50,000 square foot addition. CML announced a $120 million campaign that will not only transform the downtown branch, but 10 neighborhood branches as well. And Jack Hanna's dream of bringing an African safari to Columbus broke ground with a $30 million, 43-acre exhibit that will give us a close-up look at animals in a man-made savanna. And then just yesterday, the zoo announced a possible animal adventure to come to the downtown riverfront. But our zoo is not the only place where we can view wild animals, because at our metro parks, at Battelle Darby, a 14,000 square foot nature center opened, allowing us to not only view the bison, but to experience a 53-foot long living stream. We learned more about the volume of immigrants that continue to come to our community in record numbers over the past decade, and nearly 10% of us now are foreign-born, meaning 100,000 people in Franklin County were not born in this country. We also just heard that Eco Summit brought scientists from around the world to Columbus to discuss ecological engineering, global change, and sustainable communities. From 75 countries, more than 1,200 delegates came to Columbus. We stretched our brains with ideas, taking a look at innovation, technology, and our changing city. TEDx and Innovate Columbus inspired and challenged us. And Design Week highlighted our talents in fashion, architecture, and the creative classes. We also learned to love our neighborhoods with an award-winning documentary series by WOSU, and we also saw volunteerism skyrocket, with more than 28,000 people giving back in the largest two-week event in our history. We painted, planted, spruced up, and helped one another. And while we learned that pennies can really add up, we laid more than 40 miles of them along the riverfront. And while we came up just a little bit short of a world record here, it was here that the largest gift in Ohio's philanthropic history was made to the Columbus Foundation. We also saw the bells begin to ring at the Hollywood Casino as the state's largest casino opened, with 3,000 slot machines and 2,000 jobs. Our city began to take on residential blight as the worst of the worst began to come down. And in some places, like my neighborhood of Wineland Park, excitement built quickly as new homes replaced blighted ones. Recycling came to everyone in our city as the bins began to roll out, all 230,000 of them, and you may have read in the paper today that just since June, we have avoided 15,000 tons of materials from entering our landfill. Cooper Stadium began a new life as the plans were finalized for the old ballpark, providing a needed boost for the west side and creating a new automotive research and racing facility. And the love of our riverfront continued to surpass expectations. As throngs of people continue to visit the Scioto Mile, we realized the beauty of our riverfront. Plans continue to be unveiled for a more transformational riverfront, and attention also moved from downtown up the river to Fifth Avenue, where the Lowhead Dam was removed to make way for a series of parks next to Ohio State University. And in a year when maybe expectations didn't start out so high, the Buckeyes went undefeated for the first time in a decade. Right? And not to be outdone, the men's basketball team Sunday night brought back the Big Ten tournament the third time in 4 years. But maybe the most important gift of all to the people of Columbus has been a budget surplus. While many cities continue to struggle, Columbus continues to thrive, just as we did in those magazine articles from 1979 and 1989. The same holds true today. We are simply a city where things work. So in a year where so much was accomplished, we still have so much to look forward to. It truly was a great bicentennial year, and we're off to a great 201st year. And yes, in the past 73,402 days since Columbus was founded, we have gotten more than just a few things right. Thank you.